vibrant, it gives them love and compassion for animals. With compassion, businesses can exist in harmony with nature and communities, preserve them and help them grow.
Taking on coronavirus in hard-hit communities of color. Join Don Lemon and Van Jones with Dr. Regina Benjamin and Robert Smith. Plus, messages of hope from Mario Lopez, Samuel L. Jackson, and more. The Color of COVID, today.
What really is important to people is going to change. And with what we're seeing now, the utmost importance is health and wellness. The other thing that we're seeing, which is how we've built the company over 57 years, not just around healthy weight loss, but around the power of community, particularly in an environment where our lives have all been disrupted.
I'm Delia Gallagher in Rome, and this is CNN.
Whoa.
And now, a moment of wonder from Great Big Story.
Hi, I'm Aaron Yoder. I'm a backwards runner. I have the world record for the fastest smile ran backwards. My fastest backwards smile time is 5 minutes and 54 seconds. I've been running forward for over 20 years. I ran so much that I sustained a knee injury. My doctor told me to stop running, and I really didn't want to stop, so I knew I had to make some sort of change. In a world where everyone goes forward and I'm going backwards, it's really allowed me to just get back to competing against myself and not be so concerned what other people are doing. I found great gratification in the fact that I'm just competing against my own shadow.
For more stories like this, visit greatbigstory.com.
I'm Fred Fleckton in Berlin, Germany, and this is CNN.
All right, quick bit of business to go through from Capitol Hill. Breaking news. The House just passed a $3 trillion coronavirus relief bill. Manu Raju joins us now. Thank you, Manu, for the quick work. What do we know about the vote?
Well, the bill passed by a 208 to 199 margin, a very close margin that came in the aftermath of an aggressive effort by Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, to lock down votes. There were a number of Democrats, particularly from districts that the president carried, who were concerned about this bill. Ultimately, 14 Democrats broke ranks. They voted against this plan. One Republican, Pete King of New York, voted for it. So it passed. They needed 204 votes for it to pass. It passed by 208 to 199 margin. Now, $3 trillion, Chris, this would amount to the largest rescue package in American history if it were enacted. And this comes on the heels of already passage of several bills that totaled nearly $3 trillion already, which amounted to one of the most aggressive efforts by Washington ever to prop up the economy during the coronavirus pandemic. Now, Republicans lined up against this plan. They called it a wish list. They contended the price tag was too much. And right now, Republicans, including the White House, are saying there needs to be a pause for any additional relief measure. They are not committing to any other package to move forward, even as some Republicans are calling for an additional package for state and local money, particularly for governments that have been hit hard through this crisis. In this package, there'll be $1 trillion alone for state and local governments. But now that it looks this bill has passed the House, but it has no chance of moving forward, the question ultimately will be, what will Congress agree to now? What are the next relief package? That will only intensify pressure, particularly on Republicans who so far don't want to move forward to make a decision about whether they should start to negotiate with Democrats. But the Democrats who voted against this, Chris, argued that this was simply a messaging bill, that they should have sat down and cut a deal first before moving forward on this. But Nancy Pelosi was able to convince enough of her colleagues that this was the right way to go to create the first step in presumably getting to that bipartisan outcome. And of course, one other significant move tonight, the House for the first time will now be able to vote remotely. They passed a rules change that would allow the chamber to operate while members are away from the Capitol, so they could continue their business. It's the first time ever in history that the House will be allowed to do just that. And members are leaving now, and they're going to be gone for some time. I heard one Democratic member say, "See you in September." So the House will continue its work, but now away from Washington. Chris.
All right, Manu Raju, thank you very much. We'll talk more about what the technological difference means. It's not as easy as just saying, oh, finally you're catching up with the rest of us. You do things remotely. It means a little something different to not have lawmakers present and around each other during a process like this. But we'll get into that in time. What's important to remember right now about that vote, when you don't get something right the first time, it's hard to fix it, especially in D.C. They put all the responsibility for getting us reopened on the states. Testing, tracing, how to do it, all the different regulations. And then they left the states alone. They didn't give them the money to deal with all the huge shortfalls they have. So states are in pain, and now they have more responsibility than even the federal government. That was a mistake, and it's going to be tough to fix it. Or a reminder, we're only at the beginning of the process in Georgia. And let's be honest, nothing happened for 2 months, and it seems for no or bad reason. We now have the McMichaels attorneys continuing to push that their clients are being vilified, that we don't know the whole story. Well, we don't, but we know a hell of a lot more than we did before we started looking. We've got numerous videos of unidentified people trespassing at the construction site that Ahmaud visited on the day of his death. The Arbery family attorneys can only confirm that he was there that day, February 23rd. The neighbor who actually took the video of his death maintains he doesn't know the McMichaels. And of course, the Arbery family, which has been pushing for answers long before a video was released, is still saying, we need to know why this happened. Ahmaud's mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, is with us tonight, along with one of the family's attorneys, Lee Merritt. Ma'am, I'm sorry to meet you under these circumstances, but thank you for taking the opportunity to talk to us about your son and what you think of the developments.
Thank you.
Counselor, as always, appreciate your attendance. I'm going to talk to you, but feel free to weigh in as you feel warranted. Ma'am, what do you make of all of these videos that are coming out about who went in and out of this house and what they might mean? What do they mean to you?
I'm not as well. I didn't take a look at the videos. Actually, I'm kind of afraid to take a look at the videos. For what I can see from the videos, it doesn't look like my son at all, especially on the 11th.
Do you care? Does it matter whether he was in that house or who's been in the house or how many times? What do you think of that entire group of speculation?
That's not really important at this point. What I'm basically focusing on is what happened in the street on the 23rd of February and when he was killed.
I want to hear something about your son in terms of what you understood, young man, 25 years old, about his character in terms of how he was in confrontation. How was Ahmaud when people pushed up on him the wrong way?
Well, actually, the way that I raised Ahmaud is if he was confronted, if he was any kind of way that he could avoid it, to really avoid it. But if he was placed in a position where he had to defend himself, I did teach him he had to defend himself.
Now, Lee, you know why I'm asking. Because the only argument I'm seeing, we heard defense counsel say something very odd, which is they're going to put on evidence. They have no burden to put on evidence, but they're saying they're going to put on evidence. The only evidence that they can put on is justification. Justification means self-defense to everybody watching us right now. And Lee, what do you want people to know about what you've learned about Ahmaud and what that situation was like from his perspective, that people should remember when they're looking at the videotape and hearing the idea that these guys had to do what they did?
Well, what we now know from the homeowner who's released several surveillance videos from his property that was under construction was that several people on a regular basis stopped by this property, daytime, nighttime, without permission. And none of those people were vilified. None of them were criminalized. Only the young black man that they eventually caught up with on February 23rd was criminalized, and certainly he was the only one who was murdered. Now, we also learned just recently, really within the hour, that there was a text message early on from law enforcement to residents of the Scintilla Shores community saying, if you have a trespasser and you want it dealt with quickly, call Gregory McMichael. That was months prior to Ahmaud's murder. And so you have that entire community being deputized. And the claim that William Bryan made earlier that he didn't know the McMichaels and this wasn't a coordinated effort, that claim is starting to be eroded now.
Well, hold on a second. Now, I don't know anything about this. And by the way, let me just clear. This is from the Atlanta Journal Constitution. First of all, Ms. Cooper-Jones, I'm sorry that you have to kind of be exposed to this talk about what's going on into the case. Anything that you want to say to people, you are obviously free to say. But I want to learn as much as we can to help people understand this context. And if it gets too much for you, you just let me know. I'll end the conversation, okay? And I'll just continue with counsel. Because how you feel about this matters more to me. I'll get this information from Lee one way or the other. I'm not worried about that. But as long as you're good. Lee, I don't know anything about this. I know the AJC has it. I don't have it in my own reporting. But as we both know, you can't send a text and deputize a community. So forget about color of authority. This isn't legit. But what do you understand about this text and who it went to? I mean, you can't text a whole community. You're like, what do you know about this?
So the text went directly to the homeowner of the construction site, Mr. English. And so that's who it went to. But in response to that text message, the neighbors got a hold of it, and they said, essentially, their behavior from that point forward was, law enforcement has told us that we can deal with this if we use Gregory McMichael. And so it's not a coincidence that Gregory McMichael and his son were seen 10 days later or weeks later on a video murdering Ahmaud Arbery. Now, Greg McMichael was a cop, was no longer a cop, was retired, and there is some speculation about how things went for him during the tour, the end of his tour. But still, based on what we see in these videos, Lee Merritt, do you believe that the McMichaels thought they knew who Ahmaud was from the videos, and that is why they flew out of their house after him on February 23rd when he was just jogging by? I think they knew that he was on the property that day, and that they knew that a black male was on the property before, and they probably suspected that it was him. And that because of what law enforcement told them, they had the authority to try to arrest him. I think that they had that belief, although that is contrary to the law. Do we know anything about the police telling Greg McMichael and or his son that they were in any way empowered to do anything in terms of local policing? No, only by inference. So the text message to the homeowner says, contact Gregory McMichael. Here's his address and his cell phone if you have action on that videotape. What does it mean to you that it seems like one of the people on the tape that may or may not be Ahmaud? Again, I don't think it's relevant for the legal analysis, but just in terms of what was in the head of the accused, which again is a rare gift. I mean, usually we don't know what they were thinking. Here, it seems like we got a pretty good idea what they were thinking. That the guy was there to get water. What does that mean to you in the clouds of speculation that we're seeing? Sure. Well, the homeowner he knows the layout of that entire property. He knows that Ahmaud tended to move towards where the faucet was. That he stayed, that he walked around He knows that he never damaged anything, that he never took anything, that he never did anything illegal on the premises besides possibly being there, although I'm not certain that any no trespassing signs were posted. And so with all that information, we know that Ahmaud couldn't have possibly been doing anything that warranted a citizen's arrest, which requires a felony, and that these men were acting outside of the bounds of the law.
I know that you're haunted by this, Ms. Cooper-Jones, and I can't imagine being counsel to your head and heart during a time like this. But the more you learn about what went into this situation and what was waiting for your son that day, how do you feel about it?
It makes me very angry that, you know, my son's life his life was taken so senselessly, and they didn't respect him. They didn't respect his life at all. I mean, he was just a nobody to them.
How confident are you that your son was there on a jog?
Very confident.
And the idea that, well, he wasn't dressed for jogging, he had cargo pants on. What does that mean to you?
Regardless of what he was wearing, my son was out on a jog.
And you'd seen him jog in lots of different outfits.
And that is correct, sir.
And him jogging that distance from home, was that unusual?
Not unusual at all.
Had he ever said anything to you about getting water at a particular house, or that anybody was looking at him funny in that neighborhood or anything like that? Did he have any concern?
No, he never shared any concerns. That's why I know that his death was totally caught off. He was caught off guard. I mean, he had no clue that he was in danger.
Do you think that Ahmaud, if he knew that people were trying to get him, that he would have continued running down the middle of the street?
No, sir.
What do you think he would have done, knowing your son?
He would have stayed away.
He would have made a break for it, try to get away from the cars.
Exactly.
Hey, Lee Merritt, you said something I want to pick up with you on. William Roddy Bryan. He is mentioned in the police report by the accused, by one of the McMichaels, who say Roddy tried to head him off. Roddy says through his attorney, not me.
2020년 5월인데
You said something about
제가
what you
12월
thought
달까지
of this
180도로
situation
다리를
was.
찢을 수 있을까?
What have you developed as an understanding, and with what basis?
Well, really, just sitting and watching what was tantamount to a deposition on your show, I listened to his attorney say that he was sitting home, minding his own business, minutes before the murder. And then within minutes, he was in his truck, holding a camera, recording Ahmaud being ambushed.
지금 되게 많이 찢은 것 같아도
By inference, it had to be coordinated.
한
There's no other way to explain how
95도?
he went from minding his own business to his
95도입니다.
couch,
지금 95도.
minutes later, filming Ahmaud's murder.
Why hasn't he been charged?
I think that there needs to be some substantiation of what's being said. I think the McMichaels have finally closed their mouths. I think as additional evidence comes out, particularly this evidence, I think we're going to find that these neighbors have been talking, that they've been sharing information, and that additional evidence will come forward, that there was coordination between several members of the community, and I expect arrests going forward.
You know what? There's more I want to talk to you about, Lee, because you got some stuff. We'll follow up with the AGC and see if we can get the reporting. But you know what? I can't do it to Ms. Cooper-Jones. If this were my family, I've heard enough tonight. Lee Merritt, I'll get in touch with you and circle back about what you understand and the basis and what you think of the videotapes. Wanda Cooper-Jones, I'm very sorry that the loss of your son has provoked all this. The only thing I can say to you is, at least take some solace in the fact that you have a lot of people pushing for it. That there is no miscarriage of justice here this time. That people know what happened, they know why it happened. It's the most complete investigation. It's the most